After ending the call, Priya stood in the hallway for a moment, letting the news sink in. Just 3 weeks ago, she'd been ready to drop out of school to work more hours. Now everything had changed because she'd been honest with a stranger in a blue button-down shirt. She walked back into the doctor's office with tears streaming down her face. Her parents looked up in alarm until she broke into a smile. "Mom," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "we can afford the treatment, all of it." As she explained what had happened, Priya remembered David's words from their first meeting. Things have a way of working out when you least expect it. He had been right all along. The video call with David Chen was nothing like Priya had expected. She had imagined a formal, intimidating meeting with corporate executives in suits. Instead, it was just David, sitting in what looked like a home office, wearing a casual sweater and the same kind smile she remembered from the store. "Priya, it's good to see you again," he said warmly. Under more honest circumstances this time. She laughed nervously. "I still can't believe I complained about the company to the CEO. That's exactly why the undercover visits worked so well," David replied. "People tell the truth when they don't know who they're talking to. And your truth helped confirm what I'd suspected for some time, that our store-level employees were being stretched too thin while corporate kept adding more expectations." For the next hour, they discussed ideas for the new position. A part-time healthcare student role with guaranteed flexible hours, benefits despite the reduced schedule, and paid study time built into the work week. "We need to make it possible for people like you to succeed both at work and school," David explained. "It doesn't make sense to burn out our most dedicated employees just because they're also pursuing education." By the end of the call, Priya felt like she'd actually been heard, not just listened to, but truly understood. As they were about to sign off, David added one more thing. "There's an annual company meeting in 3 months. We'd like you to speak about your experience if you're comfortable with that. Your story could help shape how we move forward." Priya wasn't sure she was ready to speak in front of hundreds of corporate employees, but she agreed to think about it. After all, this man had changed her life with a simple conversation. Maybe her words could do the same for others. The next few months flew by in a whirlwind of positive changes. Priya's mother started her new treatment and began showing improvement, for the first time in over a year. With the scholarship covering tuition and the medical stipend helping with hospital bills, Priya could finally focus on her studies without constant financial worry. At work, she became the first person to fill the new healthcare scholar position, working 25 hours a week on a schedule that perfectly complemented her classes. She even had dedicated paid study hours when the store was quiet. Other employees began to approach her with their own suggestions for improving the company. It seemed that once one person had successfully spoken up, everyone felt more comfortable sharing their ideas. "You're like our connection to the top," Vihan joked during one of their shifts together. The cashier who changed company policy. Priya would wave off such comments, embarrassed by the attention. "I just got lucky," she'd say. Right place, right person, right time. But deep down, she knew it had been more than luck. It had been the courage to speak honestly about her struggles even when it felt risky. 3 months after the scholarship announcement, Priya found herself in an unfamiliar position, sitting backstage at the company's annual meeting, waiting to be called on stage. Her parents sat in the front row of the audience, her mother looking healthier than she had in months, her father beaming with pride. David had shown Priya around the corporate headquarters earlier that day. The massive building with its sleek offices was nothing like the crowded mall store where she still worked part-time. Employees in business attire had nodded respectfully as David introduced her to department heads and executives. "This is Priya," he'd say, "the student from Color Tees who helped us see what needed to change." Now, dressed in a simple but professional outfit that her mother had helped her choose, Priya nervously reviewed her notes. David had assured her that she didn't need to follow a script, just speak from the heart, as she had done that day in the store. "And now," the announcer's voice rang through the speakers, "please welcome to the stage Priya, a Color Tees associate, and one of our first Future Health Scholarship recipients." The walk to the podium felt like the longest of her life. Hundreds, of faces looked up at her. Store managers, district supervisors, corporate executives. Just 6 months ago, she wouldn't have imagined being in the same room with them, let alone speaking to them. As she adjusted the microphone, Priya caught David's encouraging nod from the side of the stage. She took a deep breath and began. 6 months ago, I was a tired college student folding t-shirts, trying to help pay for my mom's medical bills and wondering if I should drop out of my nursing program because I couldn't balance it all. The room was silent as she continued, describing the day-to-day challenges she'd faced, the missed breaks, the understaffing, the impossible scheduling. But the hardest part wasn't even the physical exhaustion, she said, echoing what she'd told David that first day. It was feeling like I had to choose between my education, my job, and my family. 3 things that should be able to coexist in a person's life. She described her conversations with the Undercover CEO, not knowing who he really was and the changes that followed. When I received the scholarship call, I was sitting in a doctor's office trying to figure out how we could possibly afford a treatment my mom desperately needed. That call didn't just help me stay in school. It gave my family hope when we needed it most. Looking out at the audience, Priya could see nodding heads and a few people discreetly wiping away tears. I'm not standing here because I'm special, she continued. I'm here because someone in power took the time to listen to someone who wasn't. There are thousands of employees like me in this company, people juggling work with school, family, responsibilities, and dreams for a better future. They all have stories worth hearing and insights worth considering. As she concluded her speech, Priya looked directly at the section filled with store managers and district supervisors. The person folding shirts or ringing up customers might be carrying more than just merchandise. They might be carrying valuable insights about your business, along with their own hopes and struggles. And the simple act of truly listening to them could change everything, for them, for you, and for the entire company. The applause that followed was deafening. As David joined her on stage, he shook her hand and then, to her surprise, pulled her into a quick, respectful hug. Thank you, he said, just loud enough for her to hear over the applause, for reminding all of us why we do this work. Later, as Priya stood with her parents at the reception, person after person approached to thank her for her speech. District managers asked for her contact information to consult on employee programs. Human resources executives wanted her input on expanding the scholarship program nationwide. Her father squeezed her shoulder gently. Look at you, he said with pride. From folding t-shirts to changing company policy. Priya smiled, watching as other store employees who had been invited to the event were now confidently speaking with their higher-ups, sharing their own ideas and experiences. It's amazing what happens when people actually listen to each other, she said. As the evening wound down, David approached one last time. So what's next for you? He asked. Priya thought for a moment. Finish nursing school. Help my mom get better. Maybe help make sure other employees have the support they need along the way. David nodded approvingly. The company could use a liaison between corporate and store-level staff once you graduate. Someone who's been on both sides. Someone people trust to tell their truth to. Priya's eyes widened. Are you offering me a job? Let's call it a standing invitation, David replied with a smile. After all, none of these changes would have happened if you hadn't been honest with a stranger about your struggles. As they shook hands, Priya couldn't help but marvel at how much her life had changed in just 6 months, all because she'd spoken up when it would have been easier to stay silent. Sometimes the person behind the register was carrying more than just merchandise, and sometimes the customer buying plain t-shirts had the power to change lives. But most importantly, Priya had learned that honesty, even when it felt risky, could open doors she never knew existed. The end. But it was too late. Raj was approaching them with the regional managers in tow. Priya, he said, his voice unusually high. Linda and Tom would like to speak with you in the office. This was it. She was definitely getting fired. All those complaints. About management. About the company's policies. No wonder they wanted to talk to her privately. They were probably going to ask her to leave quietly instead of making a scene on the sales floor. With her heart pounding, Priya followed the managers to the small back office. Linda gestured for her to sit while Tom closed the door behind them. "So, Priya," Linda began, her tone unreadable. "We understand you've had some interesting conversations this week." Priya swallowed hard. I didn't know who he was. I never would have." Linda held up a hand to stop her. That was exactly the point. Mr. Chen wanted honest feedback from employees, not rehearsed answers. And from what we understand, he got that from you. "Am I in trouble?" Priya asked in a small voice. To her surprise, both managers laughed. "Trouble? Quite the opposite," Tom said. "Mr. Chen was very impressed by your work ethic and your honesty. In fact, he specifically mentioned your conversations in his report." Linda nodded. "He said, and I quote, 'If we had more employees like Priya, who cared deeply about both their work and their customers despite challenging circumstances, our company would be in a much better position.'" Priya couldn't believe what she was hearing. "So, I'm not fired?" "Fired?" Linda looked genuinely shocked. "No. We're here to make changes based on the feedback Mr. Chen received during his visits, starting with your store." Tom pulled out a tablet and began reading from it. "Effective. Immediately, all employees are guaranteed their full breaks. No exceptions. New scheduling protocols will ensure adequate staffing at all times. And about your requested day off next Thursday, consider it approved." Priya's mouth fell open. "Really?" "Really," Linda confirmed. "In fact, Mr. Chen has initiated several company-wide policy changes that will be announced next week. Your conversations with him highlighted issues that apparently exist in many of our locations." As Priya sat there trying to process everything, Tom added, "One more thing. Mr. Chen asked us to give you this." He handed her a sealed envelope with the company logo and her name written in neat handwriting across the front. "What is it?" "She asked." Linda smiled. "He said you should open it in private, but between us, I think good things are coming your way, Priya." As she left the office in a daze, clutching the mysterious envelope, Priya couldn't help but think about what David had said during their last conversation. Sometimes speaking up is worth the risk. He had been right after all. Priya didn't open the envelope until she got home that night. Her small apartment was quiet, and she sat cross-legged on her bed, turning the sealed envelope over in her hands several times before finally tearing it open. Inside was a letter written on thick company stationery with David Chen's signature at the bottom. Priya's hands trembled slightly as she read, "Dear Priya, thank you for your honesty during our conversations. Your genuine feedback and dedication to your work, despite difficult circumstances, have highlighted issues I suspected, but needed to confirm firsthand. Your commitment to both your education and your family is commendable. I hope the immediate changes being implemented will improve your daily work experience. However, I believe we can do more for employees like you who are pursuing healthcare, education while supporting family members with medical needs. Please watch for an announcement next week about a new company scholarship program. I encourage you to apply as soon as it opens. Sincerely, David Chen." Priya read the letter 3 times, barely believing what it said. A scholarship program? For employees like her? It seemed too good to be true. She called her parents right away, her words tumbling out as she tried to explain what had happened. Her father laughed in disbelief when she got to the part about the CEO visiting in disguise. "Only you, Beta," he said warmly, using his affectionate nickname for her. "Only you would tell the big boss exactly what's wrong with his company without even knowing who he was." "I still can't believe I didn't get fired," Priya admitted. Her mother's voice came through the speakerphone, weaker than it once was, but full of pride. "That's because you spoke from the heart. People recognize honesty when they hear it." For the first time in months, Priya fell asleep that night without worrying about money, or her next shift, or her upcoming exams. Just for one night, it felt like things might actually work out. The changes started immediately. When Priya arrived for her next shift, she found a new manager had temporarily replaced Raj. Apparently, he had been reassigned to corporate training, according to the cheerful, woman who introduced herself as Anjali. I'll be handling this location for the next month while we implement the new systems, Anjali explained during the pre-shift meeting. First change, everyone gets their full breaks. No exceptions. I'll be on the floor myself to cover if needed, Vaihan shot Priya an impressed look across the table. The other employees seemed cautiously optimistic, though some looked skeptical. They'd heard promises before, but this time was different. By the end of the first week, the difference was clear. The new electronic scheduling system guaranteed adequate coverage for every shift. Breaks were tracked to ensure everyone took them. Even the back room got organized, making inventory and shipments more manageable. It's like a completely different job, Vihan said during their lunch break in the food court. And we all know who to thank. He nodded toward Priya. I didn't do anything, she protested. I just complained to the wrong person. Or the right person, Vihan countered. People have been grumbling about these issues for years. Nothing changed until you spoke up. Word had spread throughout the store about Priya's conversations with the CEO. Some employees seemed impressed, others a little jealous. But everyone agreed. Things were better now. The following Monday, exactly 1 week after David's identity had been revealed, the promised company-wide announcement came. All employees received an email about the new Future Health Scholarship Program for staff pursuing healthcare degrees while supporting family members with medical needs. The requirements matched Priya's situation exactly, working at least 20 hours weekly at the company, enrolled in an accredited nursing or healthcare program, and helping to support a family member with ongoing medical expenses. The scholarship would cover tuition and include a stipend specifically for family medical costs. Applications were being accepted immediately, with the first recipients to be announced in just 4 weeks. Priya applied that same day, carefully filling out each section of the online form. She wrote honestly about her mother's condition, their financial struggles, and her dream of becoming a nurse who could help families like hers. She tried not to get her hopes up too high. Surely many employees across the country would qualify. For the next few weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. Work became manageable with the proper staffing and scheduling. Priya's grades improved now that she could study without constant exhaustion. She even managed to attend all her mom's appointments without losing work hours. Then came the day that would change everything. Priya's mother needed a new treatment, one that their insurance would only partially cover. The remaining cost was more than 2 months of Priya's salary. She sat in the doctor's office with her parents, trying to keep her face calm as the numbers sank in. They would find a way. They always did. Maybe she could pick up extra shifts or apply for another loan, or... Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. The number showed as Color T's Corporate. Priya excused herself and stepped into the hallway to answer. Hello, is this Priya? A professional voice asked. Yes, this is she, Priya replied, heart racing. Why would corporate be calling her directly? This is Michelle from the HR department. I'm calling about your scholarship application. Priya leaned against the wall, preparing herself for disappointment. Yes? I'm pleased to inform you that you've been selected as one of the first recipients of the Future Health Scholarship. The world seemed to pause. What? Michelle continued. The scholarship committee was extremely impressed by your application. Mr. Chen himself asked to be notified when the decisions were made. I got it? Really? Priya's voice cracked with emotion. Yes, you did. The official letter will arrive tomorrow, but we wanted to call our recipients personally. The scholarship will cover your remaining tuition, and the medical expense stipend will be available immediately. Tears welled in Priya's eyes. I don't know what to say. There's one more thing, Michelle added. Mr. Chen has asked if you'd be willing to meet with him via video call tomorrow. He's creating a new position at several stores, a part-time role with flexible hours designed specifically for students in healthcare programs. He'd like your input on how to structure it. Priya couldn't believe what she was hearing. Not only would she be able to continue her education, but her mother could get the treatment she needed. And now the CEO wanted her help designing a new position? Of course, she managed to say. I'd be happy to speak with him. Hello again, he said, walking up to the counter. Priya, right? She was surprised he remembered her name. That's right. Back for more t-shirts? He laughed, a genuine sound that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. Actually, I forgot to check if these were machine washable. He held up a small shopping bag. Silly question, I know. Most t-shirts are, but I've ruined enough clothes to be careful now. Priya smiled despite her bad mood. They definitely are. Cold water and tumble dry low is best to keep the colors bright. Perfect, thank you. But instead of leaving, he glanced around the store. Seems quieter today. A little, Priya agreed, though we're still understaffed. The man leaned against the counter. There were no other customers in the store at the moment. You mentioned you're studying nursing yesterday. What made you choose that field? Something about his manner, patient, interested, not rushing, made Priya comfortable enough to chat. She had another hour before the after-school rush would begin. My mom, she said simply. She got sick last year. Heart problems. The nurses who took care of her were amazing. They knew exactly what to do, of course, but they also made her feel safe. Made our whole family feel less scared. She straightened a stack of sale signs on the counter. I want to be that person, for someone else someday. The man nodded thoughtfully. That's a powerful reason. Much better than just choosing a career for the money or because someone told you to. Money would be nice too, Priya admitted with a small laugh. These hospital bills are no joke, and the medication costs keep going up. No insurance? The man asked. Priya sighed. Basic coverage only. My dad's company cut back on benefits last year. The timing couldn't have been worse. She suddenly felt embarrassed again for sharing so much. What was it about this stranger that made her open up? Sorry. I don't usually tell my life story to customers. You're easy to talk to. The man smiled. I've heard that before. I think it's because I actually want to know. Most people just ask questions to be polite. So why do you want to know? Priya asked, genuinely curious. About me, I mean. He thought for a moment before answering. I believe everyone has a story worth hearing, especially young people working hard jobs while chasing bigger dreams. Those stories matter. From the back of the store, Raj's voice called out, Priya, the new shipment needs to be unpacked and on the floor by closing. Priya sighed. Duty calls. More boxes to unpack, more shirts to fold. Seems like a lot for one person, the man observed. Does your manager help? Priya lowered her voice. Raj? Not really. He mostly stays in the office or takes important calls. I haven't had a proper lunch break in weeks because there's never anyone to cover the register. She gestured to the schedule board visible through the break room door. And he just canceled my day off next week, the day of Mom's doctor appointment. I was supposed to take her. The man frowned slightly. That doesn't seem right. Aren't there labor laws about breaks? Probably, Priya said with a shrug. But what am I going to do? Complain I need this job? And anyway, the district managers never come to see what's actually happening in the stores. They just look at sales numbers. A customer walked in and Priya straightened up, ready to help. The man in the gray shirt stepped aside but didn't leave. After she finished helping the customer find a gift for their nephew, she returned to find the man still there, looking thoughtful. I should let you get back to work, he said finally. But I wanted to ask, with everything going on, school, work, family, what keeps you going? Priya hadn't expected such a deep question. She thought about it for a moment. Hope, I guess. Hope that it won't always be this hard. That one day I'll be a nurse, Mom will be healthier, and all this struggle will make sense somehow. She smiled. Plus, my dad always says tough times don't last. But tough people do. It's cheesy, but I kind of believe it. The man's eyes crinkled. Again. That's not cheesy at all, it's wisdom. He extended his hand. I'm David, by the way. Nice to meet you officially, David, Priya said, shaking his hand. The pleasure is mine, he replied. And Priya, about your day off, don't give up on it just yet. Sometimes speaking up is worth the risk. With a final nod, he left the store, leaving Priya wondering about this strange customer who seemed so interested in the life of a simple t-shirt store employee. She had no idea their conversation was about to change everything. 2 days passed, and Priya hadn't seen David again. She wondered if he'd been just passing through town, or if he'd simply found a different store to buy his t-shirts. Either way, their conversations had been a bright spot in her otherwise exhausting week. Thursday morning started like any other. Priya woke up early, studied for an hour, attended her morning classes, then headed to Color Tees for her afternoon shift. But the moment she pushed open the store's glass doors, she knew something was different. The usual messy displays were perfectly neat. Raj was actually on the sales floor, straightening already straight piles of shirts with unusual care, and most surprisingly, 2 regional managers stood near the register, checking something off on clipboards and speaking in hushed tones. Priya hesitated at the entrance. In 8 months, she'd never seen the regional managers visit the store. Their presence usually meant trouble. "There she is," Raj called out with forced cheerfulness when he spotted her. "Priya, our star employee, right on time as always." Priya blinked in confusion. Raj had never introduced her that way. In fact, he usually barely acknowledged her arrival. One of the regional managers, a tall woman with short dark hair, approached her with an outstretched hand. "Priya, I'm Linda from Regional. I've heard great things about your work ethic." "You have?" Priya asked, shaking her hand awkwardly. The second manager, a middle-aged man with glasses, smiled at her. "The district has been reviewing all our locations this week. Your store is next on our list for a complete evaluation." That explained the unusual cleanliness in Raj's strange behavior. But why were they being so nice to her specifically? "Get your apron on and jump in whenever you're ready," Linda said. "Just work like we're not even here." Easier said than done. Priya felt like she was being watched as she put away her backpack and tied on her apron. Something weird was definitely happening. Her co-worker Vihan was folding shirts nearby, and she whispered to him when the manager stepped away. "What's going on? Why is everyone acting so strange?" Vihan looked around to make sure no one was listening before he leaned closer. "You haven't heard? It's all anyone's been talking about in the group chat. I muted the group chat last week. Too many messages during class," Priya admitted. Vihan's eyes widened. "Oh man, you missed the biggest news ever. The CEO has been visiting stores undercover." "The CEO?" Priya repeated. "Of the whole company?" "Yes. David Chen himself. Apparently he's been going to different locations pretending to be a regular customer. Just watching how things really work when no one knows who he is." Priya felt a strange chill run down her spine. "David? What does he look like?" "I don't know exactly," Vihan shrugged. "Nobody's seen him in person except at big company events. He's super private, but word is he visited a store in the North Side Mall Monday, then one downtown on Tuesday." Tuesday. The same day her mysterious customer first appeared. A middle-aged man named David who asked unusually specific questions about how the store was run. "No way," Priya whispered, more to herself than to Vihan. "What?" Vihan asked. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a company-wide email, unusual since store employees rarely got messages directly from corporate. With shaking hands, Priya opened it. The subject line read, "Important company updates coming soon." The email itself was brief, mostly corporate speak about improving employee experience and addressing systemic issues. But at the bottom was a photo of the executive team from a meeting earlier that day. And there, in the center of the photo, dressed in a crisp suit instead of casual clothes, was David. The same kind eyes behind wire-framed glasses. The same gentle smile. Only now he stood beneath a caption identifying him as David Chen, CEO and founder. Priya nearly dropped her phone. The unassuming man who had listened to all her complaints about work, who had asked about her family and her dreams, was actually her boss's 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 boss. "Priya, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost," Vihan said, waving a hand in front of her face. "I think I just did," she mumbled, showing him the photo. "This man? The CEO? He was in our store this week, twice. I helped him. I talked to him. Vihan's jaw dropped. No way. What did you say to him? Priya's mind raced through their conversations. She had complained about the manager, about the scheduling, about not getting breaks. She had shared personal details about her mom's health and their financial struggles. Everything, she whispered. I told him everything. That explains why the regional managers are here, and why Raj is sweating through his shirt, Vihan said, a little too loudly. Shh, Priya hissed. The sky outside the mall windows was turning a soft orange as the sun began to set. 19-year-old Priya sighed quietly while adjusting her blue employee shirt. Another long day at Color Tees, the busy t-shirt store where she'd been working for the past 8 months. She glanced at the clock, 4 more hours to go before she could head home. Priya's backpack sat heavily under the counter, stuffed with college textbooks and highlighted notes. The weight of those books matched the weight on her shoulders. Every dollar she earned here went toward helping her family since her mom got sick last year. The hospital bills kept coming, and her part-time pay barely covered the smallest ones. Hey Priya, I need you to handle the floor by yourself for a bit, said Raj, her manager, already backing toward the staff room. Got an important call from district. He disappeared before she could even nod, something that happened almost every shift lately. Priya tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and took a deep breath. The Tuesday afternoon rush was picking up. Families with noisy kids, teenagers laughing loudly by the graphic tees, and impatient business people wanting quick service. A group of high school boys knocked over a carefully folded stack of shirts, glanced at the mess, and walked away laughing. Great, Priya muttered under her breath, moving quickly to fix the display before the store manager could see it. Her feet already ached in her sneakers, and she'd skipped lunch to cover for a coworker who called in sick. The store was supposed to have 3 people working, but lately it seemed like she was doing everything alone. An older lady stopped her with questions about a shirt size while Priya was halfway through rebuilding the display. Then a young couple needed help finding matching shirts. By the time she made it back to the fallen display, 2 more customers were waiting at the empty register, looking annoyed. I'll be right there, Priya called, hurriedly shoving the remaining shirts into something resembling a stack. She rushed to the counter, apologizing to the waiting customers. Sorry for the wait. Did you find everything okay today? The next hour passed in a blur of transactions, questions, and cleaning up messes. When there was finally a moment of quiet, Priya checked her phone. A text from her dad. Mom's medication costs went up again. Do you have any extra hours this week? Priya's stomach tightened. She was already working as many hours as she could, while keeping up with her nursing classes. Her grades were slipping, but what choice did she have? Her family needed the money. She was lost in worried thoughts when a gentle voice broke through. Excuse me? I think I'm ready to check out. Priya looked up to see a middle-aged man standing at the counter. He wasn't dressed like the usual Color Tees customer. Just simple khaki pants and a plain blue button-down shirt. His hair was slightly gray at the temples and he wore simple wire-framed glasses. He wasn't checking his phone impatiently like most customers. Of course. Sorry about that, Priya said, quickly putting on her customer service smile. Did you find everything you were looking for today? The man placed 3 plain t-shirts on the counter. All basic colors, nothing fancy. I did, thank you. You seem quite busy today. Priya scanned the first shirt. It's actually a bit slower than usual. She tried to sound cheerful the way her training manual instructed. Really? And you're handling everything by yourself? The man glanced around the store, noticing the emptiness where other staff should be. My manager had to take a call, Priya explained, carefully folding each shirt after scanning. Something about this customer made her feel at ease. He wasn't crushing her or looking annoyed. He just seemed interested. That happens a lot? He asked. Priya hesitated. She wasn't supposed to complain about work to customers. But something in his kind eyes made her shoulders relax a little. More than it should, she admitted. But the job works with my school schedule, so I can't complain too much. School? What are you studying? The man seemed genuinely curious, not just making small talk. Nursing, Priya said with a small smile. The first real one she'd had all Dickens' second year, though sometimes I wonder if I'll make it through with this schedule. That's impressive, the man nodded. Working full-time and studying nursing, that can't be easy. As Priya finished ringing up his purchase, she found herself sharing more than she normally would with a stranger. It's not, but my mom's sick. The medical bills are, well, they're a lot. So here I am, folding t-shirts and hoping I don't fail my anatomy exam next week. She immediately felt embarrassed. I'm sorry, you didn't come in to hear about my problems. Your total is $42.87. The man handed over his credit card. No need to apologize, sometimes it helps to talk about it. While waiting for his receipt to print, he asked, So what's the hardest part? The job or the studying? Priya thought for a moment as she handed him his card back. Neither, actually. It's trying to keep it all balanced. When I'm studying, I feel guilty I'm not picking up extra shifts. When I'm working, I worry about falling behind in class. And when I visit my mom, I feel bad that I can't stay longer because of work or school. She shook her head. Sorry, that was way more than you asked. The man took his bag of shirts, his eyes thoughtful. Never apologize for working hard and caring for your family. That says more about you than any grade or job title ever could. Something about his words felt different from the empty encouragement she usually got. He seemed to really see her, not just as a cashier, but as a person dealing with real struggles. Thanks for listening, Priya said, meaning it. Hope you enjoy the shirts. The man smiled, a warm, genuine expression. I'm sure I will. And Priya, things have a way of working out when you least expect it. Keep pushing forward. With that, he walked out of the store, disappearing into the crowd of mall shoppers. Priya watched him go, wondering how a simple interaction with a stranger could leave her feeling both seen and somehow hopeful for the first time in weeks. Little did she know that this brief conversation would change everything, not just for her, but for hundreds of employees just like her across the country. The rest of Priya's shift dragged on with the usual mix of customer questions, messy displays, and aching feet. By the time she clocked out at 9:30 p.m., the mall was nearly empty. As she walked through the quiet hallways toward the bus stop, her mind kept drifting back to the kind man in the blue shirt. There was something different about him. He had actually listened to her, not just nodded politely while thinking about something else. The next morning came too soon. Priya's alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., giving her just enough time to review her notes before her 8 a.m. anatomy class. Her tiny apartment was quiet except for the occasional car passing outside. Her roommate Nita had already left for her early hospital shift. They barely saw each other these days, both too busy with work and school. Priya made a quick cup of instant coffee and sat cross-legged on her bed with her textbook. The words blurred together after a while, her tired eyes struggling to focus. When had she last gotten a full night's sleep? She couldn't remember. Class was a blur of medical terms and diagrams. Priya tried her best to take notes, but her mind kept wandering to her mom's upcoming doctor's appointment and whether she could afford to help with next month's rent. When her professor announced a practice exam for next week, Priya felt her stomach sink. Another thing to worry about. You okay? Asked Deepak, a classmate who sometimes shared notes with her. You look like you're about to pass out. Just tired, Priya said with a weak smile. Work was crazy yesterday. Still at that t-shirt place? I don't know how you do it all, Deepak said, gathering his books. A bunch of us are studying together tonight if you want to join. Priya shook her head. Can't. I have another shift. The Color Tees store was quieter when she arrived that afternoon, a welcome change from yesterday's chaos. Raj, her manager, was actually on the floor helping a customer, a rare sight. Priya tied on her employee apron and checked the schedule posted in the break room. Someone had scribbled changes all over it, and she noticed with dismay that her requested day off next week, the day of her mom's appointment, had been crossed out. In its place was a full 8-hour shift. Raj, she said when he came back, to the register. What happened to my day off next Thursday? I really need that day. My mom has an important doctor's appointment. Raj shrugged, barely looking up from his phone. District manager said we're short-staffed. Nobody gets days off. Next week unless they find their own coverage. But I requested it 3 weeks ago, Priya protested. It was approved. Things change, Raj said flatly. Find someone to cover or be here, that's the policy. Priya bit her lip to keep from saying something she'd regret. She needed this job. Her family needed the money. But moments like this made her wonder if it was worth it. She was still fuming when the door chimed and a familiar face walked in. The man in the blue button-down from yesterday, though today his shirt was a light gray. He smiled when he saw her.